Yeah, so the question is, what habits do I utilize to remove myself from the noise of culture or society? And the reality is, earlier on in my 20s, it was solitude. It was driving to Pasadena, where the Huntington Library is. It's kind of botanical gardens. And it was learning to find 3, 4, 5 hours of solitude to read the Psalms and to kind of listen to what God would have to say. So a lot of my Christian spirituality was born out of those disciplines. Now I have 4 kids. I work, sometimes 10 to 12-hour days on a regular basis, and it just seems like there's noise all around me, and it's almost impossible to get away from it. And so I really lean heavy into what someone taught me a long time ago when I was first learning about prayer. Prayer, when we get going, when we begin with it, it's that time we set aside to go somewhere, to sit down, and to then pray these things to God, like we're offering that list up. And so it's a time, it's a place where we're doing prayer rather than other things. And the busier you get, you begin to find that to become a harder and harder reality. Prayer becomes more and more difficult. And I think we've all experienced that. And I remember taking that challenge to a campus pastor and just walking him through this. Like, hey, I was praying. I was doing so good. I was learning so much. I find it really difficult now. And he says, well, you have to learn the second lesson about prayer. The first lesson is how to do it. And he says the second lesson is how to do it when you're not in prayer times. In other words, he said the second movement of prayer is learning to turn the noise into the conversation you're having with God, to turn the noise into the prayer, or to find a way to keep that conversation with God going while you're in the midst of kind of the messiness or the craze of life. And that, I think, has been the most significant discipline for me, is just first starting with praying out loud when I was in the car by myself, going between things, and then beginning to have that voice in my head internally, that when I'm in meetings or when I'm with people or even when I'm on the phone or when I'm talking to my kids, to just be bouncing everything off of God in a prayerful manner, so that you're always aware of God's presence and you're always looking to be open and available if God's going to kind of redirect you. So it's just this kind of discipline of praying your way through the day. And I find that to be probably the most significant thing. It's a conversational relationship with God. I think it's what Paul meant when he said, pray without ceasing. I think it's what was meant when Paul talked about fellowship with the Spirit. It's that awareness of God's presence, not that you have to get away from everyone else to experience, but that awareness of God's presence that you experience when you're in the midst of culture and society and community. So I'd say those are just 2 of kind of the more significant things I've learned as I've tried to figure out how to solve that problem of noise or stress or chaos. It's a great question.